Let's talk about in terms of the rules of buying your PPR. We talked about buying in the worst street, best street, worst or average house.
Yes.
We talked about, what are the things you can do to be able to sort of renovate it, to be able to access some equity there. What about exit strategies? What are the things to consider there? Because we all have this best intentions to live in a property for a long time if it's your PPOR.
Yeah.
However, circumstances change and so on and so forth, and we might have to then rent it out or so on.
Yes.
As well. What are some of the considerations you reckon that need to be taken into account?
Well, the first one would always be, thinking about manufacturing equity. Can I add instant value to this property? A brand new flooring, renovated, brand new carpets, a bit of an updated kitchen, a brand new, wet areas, toilet, bathroom. A lot of these things don't cost a lot. People get scared of these things because they think that, just because a house costs in today's time $350,000 to build, a kitchen would, to an average kitchen or even a decent looking kitchen. And I'll share some of those pictures, when this podcast goes live, after what my old kitchen and a new kitchen looks like. It costed me literally $12,000 to upgrade the kitchen, right? I sourced my own stone. I got the cabinet material and custom design pretty much everything. Yes, it is 4 years old. And, some people would complain and say, hey, the build work significantly cheaper back then than now. But even in today's time, the wet area or a bathroom, does not cost more than $15,000 to renovate, right? So think about how can you quickly add value to the property. Okay, that would be number one. Number two, in relation to the multiple exit strategies scenarios out of things would be, think about the suburb selection, follow the data, right? Look at the demand and the supply side of things and identify whether this suburb or this area in particular is on the growth cycle. Would you catch instant growth coming on to this property or buying this particular property? Yeah, that's another, key takeaway. And the third thing that I see a lot of people doing right now is more, buying places where they have a granny at the back or a dual income house. And, they naturally generate a side income, through Airbnb, etc. Of course, they don't want to put a long-term tenant in there. And it's a bit of a gray area. Again, seek your tax advisor and financial advice if you want to.
But what disclaimer?
Yes, definitely. But, putting a tenant in there, which you're not claiming and not exposing yourself to capital gains tax on your own principal place of residence is quite the key, when you're generating income out of it. But people use that, as a side business, a side income, using those granny flats, etc. And so there are various ways you can, have, thinking about, what I need to do with this. I have a few clients who went in and buying in their principal place of residence, and they had an old house at the front, and they said, Moss, we are going to survive here for the next 2 years, but we are going to build another house at the back, and then renovate the front and move ourselves to the back. A perfect strategy to save capital gains, still make money, and pay off your loan faster. It's a perfect strategy.
Yeah, and I really like those. And again, where you have, I've always liked where you have sort of almost like a dual occupancy type property, and you are able to rent one side.
Yes.
One of our neighbors where we are, I mean, they're an older couple, so what they've done is they've built a 3-story property with a lift, which allows them to go from the garage all the way up to where they are at the top floor.
Yeah.
But Airbnb the middle portion.
Nice, very smart.
Again, seek accounting advice and financial advice in terms of the tax implications from that aspect.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at that's helping you with paying off your debt quicker. So
definitely.
We started off going, what are the pros and the cons of PPOR and rent vesting? And there's no hard and fast rule. There's no rent vesting is the best thing in the world.
Yes, definitely.
It is great.
Yeah.
However, you can also start out with your PPOR and do it in a really clever way.
Yes.
As well.
There's one of the strategies.
As long as you've got a clear idea.
One of the strategies that I've seen a client recently do, and I really, 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 really like it. And I've seen a lot of people now doing it, since that has happened, and this was 6 months ago. A client bought a place which I personally don't prefer, right? I don't like house and land packages. And so I'm not a big fan of, people buying house and land packages, right? And a lot of people who are, astute investors would potentially stay away from it. But this is an interesting strategy. So he bought a 6x6 rooming house, or he built a custom design 6x6 rooming house, but he did it in such a way that that house can be, livable and be converted into almost living space for him to basically live there in the future. Okay, and this is a premium property in Melbourne that he basically did that. And he said, the only reason I'm doing this is because I can see myself living in that suburb, but I can't afford to live there right now. But what I'll do is I'll buy this, I'll get this paid off to like say 50% or 40% or 30% debt, and then I'll convert using the same equity, and I'll move in there. What a smart way to think about it, right? It's an amazing strategy.
Yeah. And this is the thing. It's like knowing where you want to be in the next 5-10 years and coming up with a creative solution to make it happen.
Definitely.
I really like that it's like him having this awareness of going, I can still do what I need to do in the meantime, which will allow me to get to my goal, which is purchasing that property in this suburb. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's clever.
Yeah.